particularly bonkers.
Not just isolated to the House of Representatives. Roll it.
You are the most famous man on planet Earth.
You're possibly right.
We are getting this nation ready for the return of Donald J. Trump, that we will stake this.
We do not deify or worship Donald Trump.
Donald Trump! Donald Trump! Donald!
You know, Hezbollah is very smart. They're all very smart.
Do you think that's the right tone to set at a time like this? It was also critical of Benjamin Netanyahu. What do you think of all of that?
Well, I think Donald Trump needs to answer for Donald Trump's own comments.
And if the election wasn't rigged, there would be nobody even thinking about going into Israel.
Why would you say to Ken Buck that the election was stolen in 2020? That was not stolen.
Republicans eat their young. They really do. They eat their young.
What I would remind a lot of the members who are against Jordan, because his reputation precedes him, but his reputation has changed over time. He has become part of the solution, not part of the problem.
He defied the congressional subpoena and he was trying to get Pence to overturn the electoral votes. But anyway, you're in the Jordan camp.
But a lot of them did that. If I held that grudge, I wouldn't have friends in the Republican conference.
That's two-thirds of the conference. That's an excellent point.
Jim Jordan would be an outstanding Speaker of the House.
Well, it's interesting to me to hear you say that Jim Jordan would be a great speaker, given he was someone who sent a text to the Chief of Staff on January 5th that outlined for you to violate the Constitution.
I was not aware of his opinion going into January 6th.
I've actually talked to Democrats who trust him at his word. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility.
Jim Jordan?
Yes, I've talked to Democrats over the last week on who do they trust, even though they wouldn't agree with him on many issues. He is someone.
The Jim Jordan from Ohio?
Oh, yes, the Jim Jordan from Ohio.
Democrats in Congress?
I am willing to go to jail if that's what it takes for our country to win and become a democracy again.
I hadn't seen that last part of
Tara,
saying he's willing to go to jail. That's news to me. Good.
Tara, there are a lot of things in this world that I really treasure. My wonderful children, a beautiful woman, my back porch on a fall afternoon, a glass of wine, and the thought of Donald Trump in prison.
You and me both.
These things all come together in my mind to be like the most. It would be the most perfect moment ever for Donald Trump to be hoisted on that petard that he just quoted of he's willing to go into prison. I'm like, America accepts your challenge.
No kidding. Between that and Nancy Mace deciding to become the worst person in Congress next to, I guess, like Santos, Boebert, and Gates, and like becoming part of that crew, and all of a sudden, I guess she's decided she wants to be Tits McGee now on Jake Tapper's show. What is she doing?
So let's break a little news here and tell people what's really going on. The reason Nancy Mace broke bad was because Nancy and Kevin had a personal disagreement.
Oh, was this a personal disagreement along the same lines as Kevin McCarthy and Renee Elmers?
It is rumored to have been the same sort of personal disagreement. And apparently he dropped her for a lobbyist about a week before the vote. Good job, Kevin. Excellent judgment as always, my friend. Wow. Really, really stellar.
I'm not surprised at this, given his history in this area.
And look, this is very on brand for Kevin McCarthy.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And Kevin, if you want to sue me for saying it, do it. We'll go to Discovery because that shit won't work well for you, brother.
Right. Do you want to travel back to the speaker's race in 2015? Why he was passed over after Boehner's episode? Yeah.
So, look, here's the thing though. Once these people go down the MAGA pathway, they're lost.
It's done. It's
like
a zombie.
That's something really important. While we're talking about the fact they can't come to a conclusion on a speaker, 200 of them are with Jim Jordan.
Right.
200 of the 217 are with Jim Jordan.
I said this on MSNBC the other night.
I know you did. It was a great hit. And it's like, how do you think to yourself, oh, well, the normies are fighting back. The good people are still around. Horse shit.
Right.
The normies have given up. They are already with Jim Jordan.
Unless you're acknowledging then that there's only 20 out of 221 normies left in the Republican caucus. 10%.
Correct.
So 90% of them have become MAGA lunatics, which is pretty much what's happening here. Because if you look at, there you go, the first round, 200 for Jim Jordan, 212 for Hakeem Jeffries, and 20 voted for somebody else. That's kind of, it's like the irony of this. And then he lost, he gained a couple, lost a couple, but he still doesn't have enough to become speaker, thank God. And it just looks so counterintuitive that the Democrat has more votes than all of them, and yet he cannot become speaker because it's not a majority of the House.
I started writing a piece this afternoon about this, and I was wondering, what's the longest period of time a major legislative body has gone without being able to get a leader and form a government? Well, it turns out it was Belgium back in 2009. 589 days without a speaker or a leader of government.
2.5 years.
Because they were fighting between the Walloons and the Flemish. That's a little too obscure for most people, I know, but
this hasn't happened in 100 years for the U.S.
This has the potential to go on for a long time, folks. And if Jordan had gotten his way earlier today, it would have dragged on until February with Patrick McHenry, who, as the interim semi-temporary kind of sort of speaker, would have been stuck with no power essentially until January, when Jordan would have managed to browbeat and intimidate enough people to vote for him.
Right.
And of course that would have taken Patrick away from his very profitable Treehouse-based bakery where they make delicious cookies. And
that's okay. As you listen, yeah. Given the way this conversation is going, you see that
the LP tradition of drinking during the show.
Correct. You see, my husband caught the cue and brought me. So I'm with you there, brother.
A fine man.
I mean, it drives you to drink, for God's sakes. This is insane. I mean, I actually went back, and there was some Twitter website or X, whatever the hell it's called now, that actually broke down all of the speaker fights. Like at every round, every speaker election, I shouldn't say fight because they're not always that way. Every speaker election since the first time they elected a speaker, and how many rounds, how many votes, and how long they were speaker. And it was literally 1923 was the last time before the Kevin McCarthy debacle. Multiple rounds, 100 years ago. And then before that, it went 33 rounds in I think it was the 1859. So it was right before the Civil War. And before that is what it went 133 rounds. And that was, again, in that pre-Civil War era. So not a great precedent for the last time the House of Representatives was in this type of chaos. And, the fact that Jim Jordan is who these people are applauding and commending and saying that Jim Jordan can be our next leader. I want to remind the American people how fucking contemptuous Jim Jordan actually is. Yes. Let's roll your coup.
This is your coup. This is your siege. This is your insurrection. With your support for Donald Trump, you have brought this shame to America. You authorized this. You condoned this. You supported this. You, Jim Jordan. And you will be held accountable. This disgrace is all yours.
The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Let's remind people Jim Jordan's role in January 6th, shall we?
Yes, let's.
Let's do that. First of all, Jim Jordan, remember when we found out that Donald Trump was like, yeah, don't worry about it. We're going to have our Republican congressman take care of the rest when they were plotting the coup plot. We found that out. Yeah, who are those Republican congressmen? Yeah, Jim Jordan. Who was the person who talked to Donald Trump the day of January 6th, but also addressed the conference on January 5th, the day before, laying out the case for what they should do to protest the certification? That was Jim Jordan who did that. Who was the person who, when he was asked, did you talk to Donald Trump on January 6th? He was like, whoa, I don't know. You don't remember? Let's take a look. Let's hear Jim Jordan when he was called out and asked, did you talk to Donald Trump on January 6th?
First off, yes or no, did you speak with President Trump on January 6th?
We have the clip, right?
Yeah, I mean, I spoke with the president last week. I speak with the president all the time. I spoke with him on January 6th. I mean, I talk with President Trump all the time, and that's I don't think that's unusual. I would expect members of Congress to talk with the president of the United States when they're trying to get done the things they told the voters in their district to do. I'm actually kind of amazed sometimes that people keep asking this. But of course, I talk to the president all the time. I talked to him, like I said, I talked with him last week.
On January 6th, did you speak with him before, during, or after the Capitol was attacked?
I'd have to go. I spoke with him that day after. I think after. I don't know if I spoke with him in the morning or not. I just don't know. I'd have to go back and. I mean, I don't know that when those conversations happened. But what I know is I spoke with him all the time.
Yeah. Okay, buddy. Yeah. You're telling the truth.
I'm really buying that one. You've convinced me, Jim Jordan. I've changed my mind.
I mean, when that clip first came out, I had Michael Steele on the show. It was the summer of 2021. And I think you were traveling, Rick, and it was me and Michael. And it was one of the most viral clips we ever had. It had 2 million views, where Michael Steele went off on Jim Jordan and said that he looked so uncomfortable. He looked like his mother just walked in on him masturbating as a teenager.
That's like a Rick Wilson level line. I am jealous I didn't do that one.
It was. And I'm telling you, we were in hysterics. And it's true. It's obvious he's bullshitting. He's lying because he got caught. And that's also probably why he defied a congressional subpoena from the January 6th committee to come and testify under oath. Because then guess what? He couldn't bullshit like that for fear of contempt of Congress. So, I mean, folks,
if you want to get receipts on this, our buddy Denver Riggleman has the receipts.
Yes,
he can and he's gone through a couple Twitter threads on it. He can go through chapter and verse about the contacts Jim Jordan was making with Mark Meadows and the White House and the rest of this crapulous conspiracy to overthrow a free and fair election. I will tell you, I thought I had lost the ability to be shocked by the depravity of the Republican Party and their utter amorality. But these people also know who Jim Jordan is.
Yes.
They know he was one of the conspirators. They know he was involved in the plot. They know it was an essential element of 1-6. And it goes back to that moment where Liz Cheney, where Jordan says, we should get the ladies out of the chamber. And Liz Cheney looks at him and says, don't you touch me. You did this.
You fucking did this, is what she said.
By the way,
that's the quote.
By the way, if there was a throwdown,
my money's on Liz Cheney.
If they were throwing hands, I put Liz like she's out of Jordan's class by a mile.
Yes.
In an alternate world, she kicked his teeth in on that.
Indeed. And, yes. And shout out to Denver Riggleman, our good friend. I hope to see him this weekend. And if you have not read his book, The Breach, you should, because Denver worked when he left Congress. He worked on the January 6th committee. He has a data analytics company, and that's what he does. He spent decades in the military and army intelligence, and this is what he did. And so him and his team were responsible for analyzing all of the data that came through, the text messages and emails and things. And he's the one that their team discovered the Ginny Thomas text and the Mark Meadows text and this Jim Jordan stuff. So yes, definitely. If you don't follow Denver, follow him on Twitter and check out his book, because it's really illuminating. And I know for him, it's frustrating because he has so much information on this that the January 6th committee couldn't even get to, because there was just so much and they had but so much time.
For reasons.
Yes, and other reasons. But the Jim Jordan piece of this, and the fact that Republicans would elevate someone who was so disrespectful of the rules. Could you imagine if Nancy Pelosi had defied a congressional subpoena and then the Democrats were rallying behind her?
They would never shut up about it for a billion years.
Never.
The sun could cool into a burnt cinder and they would still be talking about it.
Absolutely. And that's why I even said on last night on MSNBC, I said, Democrats, guys, you need to make Jim Jordan the face of the election next year, right next to Trump. You do what Republicans did to Nancy Pelosi and the squad.
And remember, the Democrats have done this before, guys. You made Newt Gingrich the face of the GOP
Correct.
in 1996,
And won
and
the
it
House
turned
back.
Bob Dole, the affable sort of avuncular grandfather figure of the Republican Party, into the Newt Gingrichian monster. That's a correct adverb or adjective. It turned him into this horrifying monster, and they hung all the sins of Gingrich and the crazies around Bob Dole's neck.
Yep.
And it worked. This is a strategy you have seen work before. You should do it again. Let me tell you guys, in 2010 and 12 and 14, I don't know how many freaking ads I made against moderate Democratic candidates saying, John Smith may say he's a moderate centrist, but he'll vote with Nancy Pelosi. I made hundreds of those goddamn ads for super PACs and candidates.
Yes.
And now you get the chance to hang around the necks of the Republican candidates in these Biden 18 districts. You get to say, bad touch Jim Jordan, weird, freakish, homunculus weirdo Jim Jordan.
Trump lackey.
The GOP.
Right. Insurrection, election denying.
Of the victims, and he'll ignore you too.
Right. Whatever.
I may have just started an ad.
The ads write themselves. Yes.
He looks like he smells like
No, that was John Boehner.
Shout out
with his
Kenny.
Merlot. But yes.
Shout out, Kenny. You got it.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Yeah.
Well, but look, Tara, I do think it's important to understand a couple things. The Republican Party is a failed state. They are a broken party. They've got a majority, but they can't take the majority. They've got a majority, but they can't solidify and govern. They are divided because of the perverse incentives inside the Republican Party today that are the entertainment wing of the Republican Party, the insanity of the people like Matt Gaetz, who by the way, are not done. Matt Gaetz isn't done. He's not finished. Paul Gosar and the rest of these lunatics, Andy Biggs, they're not finished. Because even if it's Patrick McHenry, even if they make a compromise deal, or they put Emmer in there, or they put Scalise in there as a temporary patch, the rules haven't been changed. And so when they bring a spending bill that funds Ukraine and Israel, Matt Gaetz and the rest of the anti-America caucus, the pro-Putin caucus, will get out there and they will take down whoever the current speaker is, even if it's a temporary patch speaker. And I want to say one other thing to our Democratic friends, and I really mean this. And I was starting to write something about this today, but I figure we do it on the show tonight. You are not responsible for saving the Republican Party. You have no moral, political, ethical, or legal obligation to pull their asses out of this fire. You should wait and enjoy every minute of their agony and the chaos. I know all of you are thinking, we've got to reopen we've got to get the government running. We've got to do the right thing. Stop. For once in your lives, think like a Republican. Think about the pain you get to cause these candidates in the fall. Think about the pain and the political cost you get to extract from these assholes, because they're going to end up either selecting Jim Jordan now or later. They're going to either take the damage now or later. This is a party that does not deserve saving. You don't have to do it. And you know what? Any reporter who's like, why haven't you saved Jim Jordan? The answer is not, we don't think it's a good idea. The answer is, go fuck yourself. That's insane. We are not touching this thing. They bought this problem. It's like, I knew a guy one time who lived down in South Florida, and the guy bought a big cat. He bought a big jungle cat, okay? Some kind of goddamn puma or something. Big wealthy donor guy. I knew him for years. Well, the goddamn thing ate his dog like a week after he got it. Tore his fucking house apart. Shit all over everything. Pissed all over everywhere. And like exotic jungle cat piss, you never get it out. You have to burn the house down. And he kept like this mental construct, like, why can't I fix? I'm like, because you brought a fucking wild animal into your house. And Jim Jordan is the wild animal they brought in their house. He's the honey badger, the wolverine, the giant ape that throws its feces at tourists. There's not going to be any better iteration of this, and you should not try to save them. Because even if you say, okay, well, we'll save Patrick McHenry, he seems like a normie. Remember, there are 200 members of the Republican caucus, including Patrick McHenry, who voted to support Jim Jordan.
Yep.
Let them drown. The boat anchor is heavy. The water is deep. Let them drown.
Because the Republicans would let them drown.
When they float up a few days later, cut them up, put them in a barrel, shove bricks into it, and drop it back into the bottom of the ocean again. Let them drown.
I hope that they listen. I mean, I understand the other side of it too, because at some point, do they come in like the cavalry and they're like, okay, we're the adults. We know we need to govern. I think at some point they're going to have to do that. How long this goes on for? But at some point they're going to have to do this. But not to save Jim Jordan. Fuck that shit.
Correct.
I'm talking about a consensus candidate or the McHenry option.
If I was Hakeem Jeffries, here's the deal I would put on the table. Okay. I would say, okay, 10 of you Republicans, 3 of you are going to get committees. They're not going to be budget or ways and means. They're going to be like marine fisheries or
science,
interior,
House
whatever.
Administration,
but they're not going to suck. But they're not going to be prime committees. And I would say this if I was Jeffries. And my other commitment to you is we're going to bring Israel aid, Ukraine aid, the budget, keep the lights on bills. We're not going to do anything crazy. We're not going to do gun control or abortion or anything else. We're going to just keep the government open until November of next year. We see how the dice fall. These Republicans in the problem solvers, which by the way, just eat a giant sack of it, problem solvers, because you guys are such a bunch of lying liars who lie.
There's a whole bunch of them voted for Jim Jordan, by the way, and 12 of the Biden district guys voted. Yeah, 12 of them. Right.
The Biden 18, 12 of the 18 voted for Jordan. These people are desperate to get out of this matrix. They're desperate to get out of this deal. And by the way, Hakeem, you don't need that many of them. You should make the deal like, hey, first 3 in the door, you're going to get a committee.
Yeah.
Next 3 in the door, set of steak knives.
Right.
But there's a way to do this deal. And look, I know Democrats would be hesitant to do it. They'd be angry about it. But you would have the speakership.
Right.
You would own the speakership. And you could therefore raise 3 times the money for your candidates in 2024 than you could raise right now.
But Rick, here's the problem with that though. Have any of the Republicans on the other side that are in these swing districts shown any courage that they would cross over to do that?
Not
None
publicly.
of them.
There are a few who have sent signals that they are willing to consider it, kind of, sort of, maybe thinking about it.
Somebody that's planning to retire. That's the only, I kind of feel like that's the only way. Because if they finally say, fuck this, I'm going to retire, I'll do it.
Listen, I have no criticism if they do this. It's the boldest political move you've ever seen.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it.
By the way, the other thing Jeffries could easily promise without breaking a sweat is to say to every single one of those members, $2 million for your campaign account. I mean, guys, I'm not being like the lofty pro-democracy guy right now. I'm telling you how to make a goddamn deal.
Yeah.
This is what I do. I understand how to sit people down and work out a problem. And the power
They're not going to do that though, Rick.
of owning the speakership, Hakeem, I love you, my friend. The power of owning the speakership is enormous, consequential, and would change the entire outcome of 2024.
Well, that's why Nancy Pelosi was able to keep her caucus together with a similar majority, right?
Yep.
You didn't see this shit with Nancy Pelosi because she raised so much money that she was able to control these members with the power of the purse because they want to get reelected and they need that money and they need that support. And Jim Jordan, he doesn't raise money. You don't understand. Like when I was in Congress, when I worked as a congressional staffer, Jim Jordan was that guy who was like like the dopey rabble rouser that nobody really counted on to raise money.
No, Jim Jordan was the guy sitting in the fucking Dairy Queen where mothers go, baby, don't look at him. Keep away. Keep away.
I'm talking about in Congress, though. But yeah, I don't know about his home district, but his hometown paper hates his guts and said that in 2019, back when he was creating problems again, that he was the second most contemptible person in Congress in government next to Trump. So they hate him back home, too, the people who know him the best.
Well, Jim Jordan's district is a modern art masterpiece.
Yeah, it's the way it's gerrymandered.
It is like a damn Rothko. It's scattered all over the map.
Yeah.
It is, by the way, unconstitutional under Ohio law as it currently stands. But
that's a whole nother set of, another thing.
For another day.
But before we move on from this conversation, because it is ongoing, literally this is happening hour by hour. If you guys have not been paying attention to this the way we have, this morning, what we thought was going to be a third round of voting for Jordan, for him to lose again, turned into, you know what? Okay, fine. We'll just expand the powers of the Speaker Pro Tem, which is McHenry, so that some things can get passed, like a CR, the aid package to Israel and to Ukraine, things like that. Because the way the Speaker Pro Tem job is described, it's a little ambiguous. This position was created after 9/11. In case there was a continuity of government issue, God forbid something happened, there needed to be someone to replace the speaker if they were not available or whatever. And so that's why this was created. So it's a relatively new thing here to have the Speaker Pro Tem. Now, a possibility here, because now that's dead. That was in the works, and then they had a caucus meeting down in HC5 and in the Capitol, and it was all hell broke loose. The reports during the day, people were screaming at each other. McCarthy told Matt Gaetz to sit the hell down, shut up. Like, there was a lot of chaos during the day today, and a lot of members were not happy with the idea of expanding the Speaker Pro Tem position. Even Nancy Pelosi expressed some concern about this because it's a little questionable. They don't really want this. They force them to create a vote in a speaker. But this guy he's a political science professor over at Catholic University. His name is Matthew Green. He said that the Constitution says almost nothing about the speakership, and that the Congress really has a lot of power to decide how it works internally. And the Supreme Court has pretty much sided with Congress's ability to do that. So one of the scenarios, since now Jordan said, like, I'm back in, he's probably going to lose again, is that they finally break down and they expand this, as you were saying earlier, where it's temporary, where, I don't know, I guess Patrick McHenry becomes like a human CR, continuing resolution, because this would keep, I guess, going on every 90 days until they figured it out. They could possibly do this because the Senate, they're moving. The Senate is like, look, we need to send an aid package to Israel. They need to replenish the missiles for Iron Dome to protect themselves from the Hamas terrorists that are trying to kill them. And Ukraine still needs our help. And we need to fund the government by November 15th. So, guys, we're sending you a package. House, what's your move? And I think that pressure is going to force them to have to do something.
Well, I do know that this is one of those power plays that for all the Republicans are like, Biden is senile. He drools all over himself. He can't do anything. Biden came up with this play. I was informed of this today. Personally came up with the idea of linking the Israel and Ukraine and spending resolutions together. And you could practically hear the gears squealing in the heads of Republicans because they don't want to be in the wrong side of this.
Right. That's right.
And McConnell's going to move it. Like you said, it's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
And if Matt Gaetz kills this thing off by blowing up the next temporary speaker or speaker, I got to tell you, this thing today where there was almost fisticuffs in the House, there's going to be a duel.
Yeah.
By the way, I have always argued that introducing duels, either with swords or black powder pistols, would really remarkably improve the quality of American political life almost overnight.
I don't know.
Almost overnight.
I don't know. They can't proverbially shoot straight. Imagine if they had to actually shoot real guns. I don't know.
Michelle Kenny says only in Weehawken.
Well, I was just going to say
that is for all of us.
In my home state of New Jersey, and just as a quick aside, when I was in New York last week for the Stop the Trump Summit put on by New Republic, me and Stuart Stevens were on a panel together with George Conway. talking about Trump and what we're doing and, the importance of stopping him again. I had a chance to go to a Broadway show and I saw Leslie Odom Jr. in his new role in a show called Pearly Victorious, which is a revival from an old Ossie Davis, Ruby Dee play from the 1960s.
Right.
And he was spectacular. And Leslie Odom Jr. was who played Aaron Burr in Hamilton, and it was amazing. So if you're in New York, go see Pearly Victorious. It was fabulous. So anyway, thus the dual comment made me think of Aaron Burr and Leslie Odom Jr. So let's move on for a minute, because this like I said, this speaker's race is ongoing. Tomorrow, I think it's 10 a.m.
Right, 10 a.m.
10 a.m. tomorrow for the vote for the third time for Jordan to lose. One last thing about this, which ties into our theme about democracy and authoritarianism and what we're watching unfold here. This is the slow burn of undermining our democratic institutions, because now we're into undermining the constitutional order of the Congress. And the other night on MSNBC, I pulled out a passage from the book, How Democracies Die, which I suggest everyone should read. It's a short read, and it's by two Harvard professors, and it will scare the shit out of you.
Yeah, and I interviewed them on my podcast.
Yes, because he also has a new book out, right?
List.
Yes, The Enemy's List. And it's an easy read, but it'll scare the shit out of you because it's so relevant to what we're seeing unfold, but it gives context. And it says in there that oftentimes that the democracy's erosion, that the masses are it's imperceptible to the masses, because people.
It doesn't feel like it's
right.
You don't feel like you're in a revolution.
That's right. Until all of a sudden you wake up and you go, "Holy shit, how did we get here?" And I think that's what's happening right now. It's all these things are getting normalized, where people are just shrugging off what's going on. Like, it's nuts. And so I don't understand why, people don't realize that when you have someone like Jim Jordan, who's out here bullying members, they're like bullying members. There's stories up and down the press today about how members of Congress, their spouses, Don Bacon's spouse in particular, getting calls, threatening calls about, what is your husband doing, not supporting Jim Jordan. There's a story in The Hill that says that she slept with a loaded gun under her pillow because of the threats.
So
this is crazy.
I've told this story before. It's in my first book. A former friend of mine was a member of Congress, who had initially been with Jeb and then with Cruz, and then with, he got to Trump in the end, endorsed him in the end, and was a go along to get along kind of congressman. Okay. January 2017, right after the inauguration, first town hall meeting. Guy in a red hat stands up and says, "Are you going to be with Mr. Trump 100% of the time?" And he gives the answer that's the right answer. He says, "You know what? I'm a Republican. I'm a conservative. I want to support my friend Donald Trump, and we can pass regulation reform and tax cuts. I'll be with him every step of the way. But I'll tell you, if it's wrong for this district, I won't back him. I want to stand by you first."
Yeah, right.
Red hat guy stands up again. "I didn't ask you that. I want to know, will you be with him 100% of the time?" And my friend says, "I hope I can be." Well, he gets off the stage 90 minutes later, and his phone is like 911, 911, 911 from his wife. Why? Because the crazies, in the interval between him saying that the wrong thing about Trump and the end of that town hall, had gone on Facebook, found her phone number, found her kid's school number, phoned in death threats to her office, phoned in threats to her house about her kids. They called and said, "You better tell your husband, if you want those 3 little girls to have a daddy, he better vote with Mr. Trump." I wrote about this, and I need to talk to him again, because I want him to tell the story. I know he's closer to it now.
Yeah.
But he literally lived in fear, even after he left Congress, that these people would kill his family if he opposed Donald Trump.
Well, that's why they say that so many members still voted for the not to certify, because they were still scared after the insurrection. And you know what?
If you feel like you can't vote for Jim Jordan because you have to vote for Jim Jordan because your family will be killed, guess what? You don't live in a goddamn republic. You don't live in a free democracy.
That's right.
You live in an authoritarian state. It's just not announced as such yet.
That's right.
Okay.
That's exactly
folks,
right.
I will tell you, I hope you'll share this content with your friends. Hope you'll let people know about this. We tell you exactly what's really going on.
Yes.
You know, we do it in a funny way sometimes, we do it in a direct way sometimes. But what you're seeing right now in Congress is the devolution of an American political system, not just one party. These people will burn down the world because they love Donald Trump that much. They
and
will
not
burn down
the
world.
Constitution, and
Jim
not our
Jordan,
democracy.
even in private, will not admit that Donald Trump lost the election.
Yeah.
Jim Jordan knows he is absolutely a co-conspirator in the 1-6 plot, a co-conspirator in the plot to overturn the election. He knows it, and they know it, and they'll do nothing about it. They are afraid. They are compromised. They are weak. Some of them are just ambitious. The typology doesn't matter. There's not a single one of them right now who will stand on that floor and say, I'm done. I want to walk over. I'm going to support Hakeem Jeffries. We may disagree on everything under the sun, but we agree that America deserves a functioning House of Representatives, the most important legislative body in the country. They won't do it. And you know what? If I get pissed off and I sound angry, it's because I am. It's because I have spent 8 years, Tara, and you and I both been 8 years in this damn fight against
Can you
this
believe
guy.
it?
And the idea that Republicans still claim that they are conservatives,
I know.
that they claim they are principled constitutionalists, that they claim they believe in limiting the power of the state of the rule of law, it's a pointless lie.
It is.
Just stop.
And it's infuriating because they've co-opted this now, and we don't have a functioning conservative, ideologically conservative, truly party anymore to argue in good faith about important issues. It doesn't exist. And in the meantime,
not even close.
Not even close. I mean, what's his name? Bill Buckley, who said that the role of the conservatives is to yell, "Stop athwart history" when no one else will. They are failing this. This is supposed to be where you yell, "Stop athwart history." And they have refused to do it. And they've caved over and over again in order to go along to get along and empower a treasonous insurrectionist, malignant narcissist sociopath in Donald Trump and everything that cascades down from what MAGA represents. And now we're seeing it infect the Congress. This is, we don't mean to belabor the point here, but that's why what's going on is so serious. And you know what? The court system, the judicial system is like the only branch of government now that is still intact enough to hold these fuckers accountable. I know, to hold these people accountable. And today we saw Sidney Powell, who was the kookiest of the kooks.
The Kraken!
Okay? The Unleash the Kraken loon, actually plead guilty in court in the Georgia election case where she was all up in that, we already know. And she pled guilty to multiple charges, misdemeanors. She cut a deal. But here she is pleading guilty. Finally, somebody being held accountable by the legal system for the attempt to overturn the election. Take a look.
How do you plead to the 6 counts of conspiracy to commit intentional interference with performance of election duties?
Guilty.
Guilty. There she is.
You know why? You know she pled guilty? Because she's guilty.
Because she's guilty.
If I was the next guy up the chain, Ken Chesborough or whatever his name is, I would flip as quick as I could.
Yes.
Because they're going to march up this chain.
Yep.
And they're going to keep getting these people. Now, look.
And she has to testify against them as part of her, testify truthfully in court as a witness, as part of her plea deal. So she was in the room where it happened, going on with our Hamilton references here.
Where it happened.
Okay. She was there. And she knows the plot. She knows. She was there in the White House when that screaming match happened that also Cassidy Hutchinson writes about in her book.
And by the way,
with
who
Mike
was
Flynn and all the
Sidney
rest
Powell?
of them.
Jim Jordan. And Mike Lee.
That's right. From Utah.
And both of them have so far, because of their positions in Congress and the U.S. Senate, avoided being put on the stand to answer questions about this. But I will say this to both Jordan and Mike Lee. History is a magnificent bitch, and she will haunt you. She will find you, and she will expose you. And at the end of the day, all of the things you've done in the dark will come to the light, if I may quote the great philosopher Johnny Cash.
Yes, indeed. In the meantime, if I'm Mark Meadows and I'm Mark Meadows' legal team, we're having a conversation about what he should do.
Yeah, and one of the conversations is flip now, scream like a cut hog. The other conversation is to try to flee the country and go to a non-extradition country under the name of Med Marcos.
Oh my
and
God.
Try to hide out.
Yeah, him and Eric Prince, they can go hang out in the UAE together and flee the country. Speaking of that, Trump, just a couple of quick things with him before we go on to talk about President Biden before his big speech tonight, because I think he deserves some kudos and
Yes.
we need to highlight the great job he's doing. But Trump, since the last time we were all together, has been issued partial gag orders in 2 cases. In the New York case and in the January 6th case, Judge Chutkin here in DC, she issued a partial gag order, and she's not playing any games. Okay?
I love
her.
the fact that Judge Chutkin seems to have a reservoir of exactly 0 fucks.
Exactly.
Like
She sure
0.
does. Just like Letitia James has 0 fucks too.
She's
So
like,
you-
it's not that I don't have a reservoir of fucks generally. It's that I have no reservoir of fucks whatsoever.
Correct. Well, she's a Black female who has risen to the highest level, in the judicial system here and been through a lot to get there. So believe me, for Black women to become, be in positions of power, what you have to go through.
What, she didn't have Leonard Leo greasing the way
Right.
at every single step.
Yeah, exactly. And so, yes, so she, and of course, Trump is out there bitching and complaining that his First Amendment rights are being violated and all this. And none of that's true.
No,
She
that's
basically said, you can't disparage the families of the prosecutors and threaten witnesses. Anybody else, if that were me or you, we'd be in jail.
Right.
The other thing in New York, in the case in New York, Trump is back in court. He's gone there again to sit through some of the civil trial, and the pictures of his face, just him looking so pissed off and mad, and he was disruptive in court today. And now he's all mad because Forbes kicked him off the 400 richest list, the 400 richest people in the country. He's all mad about that. And dude, you didn't deserve to be on that list in the first place. Never mind being kicked off of it now. It's all been a fraud.
I saw those pictures today, and I was thinking about what would Trump be thinking. I mean, I can only imagine like Fred Trump whispering in his ear with that mid-Atlantic accent. Donna, you're a fucking moron.
Yeah.
How'd you get here? No, our people don't go to jail. What are you, a fucking idiot?
Yeah. Well, he knew that when he was alive, back when he had to bail him out in the casino business, and they wouldn't do business with him in Atlantic City unless his father vouched for him, because his father knew he was a fuck up back then. So
Right. The guy was like 40 years old at that time, for fuck's sake.
That's right. That's right. We put out a video called "Broke" just to needle Donald Trump, because we all know how much he can't stand being called a loser and being called broke. Take a look.
Oh, Donald, you're broke and busted. A fraud, a con, a low-rent rip-off artist. We've always known it. So have you. Now America knows it. The courts are shutting down your crooked shell companies in New York. Bank fraud, insurance fraud. You know those are crimes, right, Donald? They're dissolving the whole Trump Organization scam right from under you. Bankruptcy won't save you this time. You'll have to sell off everything. You might even lose control of that dump Trump tower. No one will lend you money, Donald. They won't even let you hand it over to Junior or Eric. Never mind Ivanka. She hates you. Everything you ever built was built on a lie. You were never rich, never successful. New York is laughing at you. Always has, always will. And now everyone knows it. Broke, busted, the loser in chief.
We ran that while he was in New York the first time, and down in Mar-a-Lago too, right?
Yes, and it's why Chris LaCivita, his campaign manager, has been screeching and wailing about us lately online.
Yeah, he has.
And because in Trump world, the feces rolls down the incline, and so when Trump gets mad, he calls Chris LaCivita, who's a very, very smart guy, very respected campaign consultant. But Chris has bought into a problem since this is a family show mostly,
Sometimes.
Chris has violated the social and political rule of don't blank crazy. And right now he's hip deep in crazy.
Yeah.
And it's never going to get better, Chris. Love you, brother. You're going to have a fun time with this because Donald will turn on you. He turns on everybody. Brad
It's just a matter of
Parscale was
time.
the genius. He turned on Brad.
It's just right. It's
Jason
just a
Miller,
matter of time.
in and out. I think the only reason Jason stays around is he's got like some sort of enhanced knee pad equipment to grovel appropriately at any given time.
Well, given Jason Miller's history, Donald Trump's
I just
about the
wonder
only
if Jason's
person.
wife-
He's about the
I just
only
wonder if
person that would
Jason's
put up
story-
with him.
Yeah. I just wonder if Jason's story will have a happy ending.
Oh God, Rick. Stop it. Stop it. No more
Look
drinking
it up,
for you.
people.
Yeah, Google it. Google it,
All
folks.
right.
Before we go, I think it's important that we talk quickly a little bit about Joe Biden and his trip to Israel. And the speeches that he's been giving lately have just been phenomenal. And the contrast between the chaos going on with Republicans, their inability to govern, to be adults, to do their basic duty, versus Joe Biden, who's presidenting. He is doing what the president of the United States is supposed to do in a time of crisis. He has really stepped up to the plate. And I think it's, if you haven't seen his speech on democracy, you need to watch that. If you have not seen his speech that he gave in Israel, supporting Israel and why it's important for the American people to be supportive of Israel, you need to watch that, and definitely watch what he has to say tonight, because he's going to tie that all together. And we, of course, made sure that we did our part here at Lincoln Project. And, shout out to the creative team. Rick, you guys have been just killing it. And I want to show American Leader. This is one of our latest that we've put out this week.
For 4 long years, Donald Trump disgraced America, laughing with mass-murdering dictators, Vladimir Putin's puppet.
The people of Crimea, from what I've heard, would rather be with Russia than where they were.
The world laughed at us.
Hezbollah is very smart. They're all very smart.
No more.
The people of this nation have spoken. At this hour, my friends, democracy has prevailed.
Today, America once again leads the free world. A respected leader, steady, determined, who knows America is great because America is good.
We stand with Israel today, tomorrow, as we always have.
Under President Biden, our friends are stronger, our enemies weaker.
This is not about party or politics. It's about the security of the United States of America.
A strong economy at home, a respected America abroad. President Joe Biden, an American president.
The contrast is stark, Rick.
And here's the thing. I don't want to be like give away too much of the behind the curtain stuff. These ads are not hard to write. They are not hard to produce. Michelle Kinney and our team sit down with our amazing editors. Stuart Stevens and I, we could write 50 positive Joe Biden ads every day right now. And what scares the Republican Party the most is that Joe Biden is a strong foreign policy president. He is in the tradition of FDR, of JFK, of Ronald Reagan, of George Bush 41. He understands what he has to do on the world stage. He understands America's vital role. He is almost Churchillian in this role. And, there's a really interesting Churchill parallel here because, people thought Winston Churchill was a drunk. He was too old. He was too tired. That he was never, the guy who was the first pick for these things. And yet he turned out to, and he was flawed. Okay. Everybody knows he was flawed, but he turned out to be one of the greatest war leaders and national leaders that the world has ever known. And I'm not going to put Joe Biden quite on the Churchill level yet, but he has faced these crises with aplomb, with knowledge, with wisdom, with strength, with an intuition for the right thing to do. And he has reflected American values. Donald Trump went to Europe, talked to NATO, and it was like, this is my protection racket. Fuck you, pay me.
Right. And literally pushed world leaders out of the way.
Right.
Pushed his fellow,
was a child in the arms of Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un.
Yes. And
Joe Biden has
chastised
made
by
moral
Angela
clarity.
Merkel.
Yeah. Right, exactly. He's made moral clarity a highlight of what he's done. He's gone over there and said, you know what? There aren't two sides between Israel and Hamas.
Mm-hmm.
And he's gone over and said, if you care about the Palestinian people, you must oppose Hamas.
Correct.
He has done the right and proper, and there is a bipartisan tradition of strong foreign policy leaders in this country who are measured, but who reflect our best values and our better angels. And Joe Biden is that guy.
And
Right?
thank God that he's in the
Yeah.
Oval Office today and not Donald Trump. And on that note, we're going to leave you with what it would look like, the difference between Donald Trump and Joe Biden to reinforce that contrast. And we will see you guys in 2 weeks. And make sure to check out the President of the United States addressing
A couple minutes,
country
actually.
in a
Yeah.
couple minutes. So we'll see you in a
Get a
couple
glass
weeks.
of wine.
Yes.
Watch the video. Get a glass of wine. Watch the president.
Yes. Cheers to democracy. Praying for Israel.
Hear, hear.
This is what they are. This is all they have to offer. This is Trump's Republican Party. Lawless, chaotic, violent, cruel, small, and mean. In 2024, it's a choice between liberty and oppression, between your rights and their control, between education and book burning, between truth and sick propaganda, between pride and strength in the world or bowing down to dictators. The only thing Donald Trump and his imitators offer America is a country worse off than today. A country where poverty, violence, ignorance, and cruelty define their American nightmare. Fighting them will take courage, strength, determination. Are you in?